Welcome, horror fans. You're listening to Someone's in My Fruit Cellar Podcast with Blake and Loni.
Welcome to Someone's in My Fruit Cellar Podcast.
Where the trap door creaks open and horror classics come back to life.
I'm Blake.
And I'm Loni.
Each episode, we dive deep into the blood-soaked brilliance of classic horror movies, breaking down the 10 scenes that sent shivers down your spine and etched themselves into horror history.
From demonic possessions to final girls, we'll dissect what made these moments unforgettable and crank up the dread with the perfect soundtrack to match each one.
So this is a new podcast. This is our first episode. And like we just said, we're going to talk about classic horror movies, at least to start our podcast. We're hoping to do an episode every 2 weeks. And maybe after we do a few episodes, we'll see if we can get some guests in, whether it's just guests who really like horror movies or whatever, or maybe we can try to get some guests that are actually in some horror movies or have something to do with horror movies. And on this podcast, yes, we're going to talk about the 10 most vital scenes in the movie, and we're going in order, but we're not going to talk about every single step of the movie like some podcasts do. We're just kind of narrowing it down to 10 different sections. And after each section, me and Loni are both going to pick a song that we think fits the scene. And sometimes that might be, the lyrics might be matching with the scene, or maybe just the song title, or maybe we just like the song and think we're going to throw it in here. Well, we're going to introduce ourselves first. So Loni, how about we start with you? Who are you? Who is Loni? And how did you get into horror movies, maybe?
I'm from the very great state of Maine, the Stephen King land. I got into horror movies when I was a small child. And my first movie was The Exorcist. And then after that, I started my horror movie escapade. I was very into the Evil Dead movies, and I really liked The Shining, and I had a lot of friends who were also into that sort of thing. So here I am.
That's cool. And of course, and we'll get to the music in a second. And now for me, I have another podcast, which is the Metal Pit Podcast, as I run the website, themetalpit.org, as I listen to heavy metal a lot. So my song list might lean towards heavy metal most of the time, but I might venture off. I'm up there in age, so I was around for some 80s pop or hard rock that might slip in maybe, but I don't know. It might not. And I know Loni is also into heavy metal, but she might also venture off the heavy metal path sometimes. But we all know that horror and heavy metal go together, so it might go together here at times too, especially in horror movies. Because like me and Loni were talking before we started this, Slayer could be in probably every episode almost, but we're going to try to we're going to try to keep to one group per episode and not repeat a group, and hopefully not repeat a song for at least a few episodes. Let a few episodes go by before we bring back another song, the song that we already did or something, but it might get tricky the more movies we get into. Now, for Someone's in My Fruit Cellar Podcast, of course, we're going to be available everywhere you listen to podcasts. And we have a Facebook page, and it's just Someone's in My Fruit Cellar. So look that up on Facebook. It's brand new, so there's really not much there. And like I said, this is our first episode. And of course, on Instagram, we're at Someone's in My Fruit Cellar. And you can follow me on the Metal Pit on Instagram, which is at the Metal Pit. Facebook is at the Metal Pit, and Instagram for the podcast is at the Metal Pit Podcast. And I also have a Facebook page for that too. And what about you? Do you want to share some of your socials so people can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram, Decay of Reality, and on Facebook. My name on there is Loni Hilario.
Oh, and if you want to contact us after, hopefully you listen to this episode and like it and whatever. And if you ever want to contact us, you can message us on Instagram, on the Instagram account. For starters, we might make an email up here as we go along, easier, or I don't know, I guess message on Instagram is easy. But anyway, so our first episode, we're going to talk about the movie Evil Dead from 1981. And I forgot. I was going to just say that my first horror movie I ever watched, I guess I never did what you did. Sorry. Let me do that first. Was Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. And that might not be a famous movie to people, as it's even more of a B horror movie than Evil Dead is that we're going to do. But it was a zombie movie, and it was just the first movie. I seen it on TV, saw people eating people, and I thought, this is different. And so like I say, I'm older. I was probably 12 or 13 or something like that. But it was just the first, and I'm assuming I might have seen The Exorcist on TV. Maybe I'd even seen that before, but I don't know. That was like the first one that I really remember thinking, this is horror, and I wanted to watch more horror. So I did. So anyway, yes, we're going to talk about Evil Dead. Do you remember, maybe now this is going to be hard to remember. Do you remember when you first saw The Evil Dead? Did you see The Evil Dead before you seen the other Evil Dead movies?
The first time I watched Evil Dead when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I recall I was at a sleepover with my friend, and she had an older brother who liked horror movies. So we snuck into his room, stole his, I'm gonna age myself here, his VHS tape. We stole it, we watched it, from then on, it was, what else could we watch? What else could we get our hands on? When we went to school the next week, we were talking about it amongst our friends who had never seen horror films. And then our teachers as well were overhearing us, and I think they thought we were crazy. But they did overhear us. They thought we were freaks. But mind you, this was back in the 80s. This is when kids weren't really exposed to much of that stuff. But Evil Dead was definitely scary for us, and we liked that. Lots of jump scare, lots of suspense. I was about 5 or 6 years old when I first saw that movie.
I can't even really remember when I first saw it, because I was just thinking Jaws, like I said about the first horror movie. So now I saw Jaws on TV also, and I know that scared me. And even though I don't know if to call it a horror movie, it's a horror movie, I guess we call it a horror movie. But I still don't know how to swim, and it's probably because of that movie. 75, Jaws came out, and then it would have been on TV a couple of years, I guess. Back then, it wasn't like 2 weeks after it was at the theater. It was a couple of years after the theater before it'd be on TV. Yeah. But, so that could have been the first official horror movie I saw. Maybe, but I didn't really think of it as a horror movie, or I didn't know what horror movies were yet. So Evil Dead, yeah, I'm sure that I saw that one first, and I love the whole franchise. Evil Dead 2 is my favorite movie, and I'm sure we'll do an episode on that sometime. And I love Our Darkness. I love the TV series, Ash vs. Evil Dead. And I also like the one that was out last year or 2 years ago there, the Evil Dead. Oh, no, I forget the name of it, but the most recent one, but not with Ash or anything, even though he did a part of it, Bruce Campbell. But anyway, so we're talking about this one. Let me briefly just say Evil Dead, of course, cult classic horror film directed by Sam Raimi. The story follows 5 college students who venture to a remote cabin in the woods for a vacation. And actually, I won't say the rest of it because we're going to say it as we go along. But I will say the cast, where I'll mention 5 of the cast, as that's pretty much the whole cast, except for some of the demon people. So we have Bruce Campbell, of course, as Ash Williams, Ellen Sandweist as Cheryl, which is Ash's girlfriend in the movie, Richard Manencore, credited as Hal Dowrich. Not sure what that point of that is, but he was Scott. Betsy Baker was Linda, and Teresa Tilly was Shelley. And she was credited as Sarah York. So maybe they changed their name to be actors after doing this movie or something.
York, actually, that was a Hollywood name. That's not her actual name. Yeah.
Which one? The Teresa Tilly? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Teresa Tilly, sorry.
She was credited as Sarah York.
Yeah.
They did. And then, of course, Hal was not his actual name either. Hal
Yeah.
Delrick. For obvious reasons. They didn't
so those were their
want to
Hollywood.
use their real names in the credits. Yep.
Yeah. And just when we get to these 10 moments of the movie, I'm going to use the word deadites. And I do know the word deadites was not used in the Evil Dead movie or Evil Dead 2. But since it was used in Army of Darkness and beyond that, and in the comic books and video games and the TV series, so that's when I say deadites, I'm referring to the demons. But that name didn't come out till later, just so people don't criticize me for saying deadites when they didn't use that name until the third movie. So, do we want to get into this? You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So the movie starts out with the arrival at the cabin, and you see the group of 5 friends in an old car, which I don't know, maybe where there's a tidbit on that, because I know Sam Raimi likes throwing some old car in every episode, but I'm not sure if it's that one or it's the one we see in the water later on. But anyway, they're driving along, and you see there's some action in the woods there with the first notes of some horror sound effects or whatever, of something running through the trees. But of course, you don't know if it's the first time you've seen the movie. And a truck comes up to them that for some reason it says Lazy Mary on the front of it. And I just noticed this. I've seen this movie so many times, but I watched it again yesterday, and the camera seemed to focus on the Lazy Mary. So I don't have anything on what Lazy Mary means. Do you know anything about that?
That's the one thing I didn't know, but I know the car was a 73 Oldsmobile Delta 88. And Sam Raimi used it in all of his movies in those days. And I know the cast had mentioned that they tried to wreck it a few times, but it didn't work.
Yeah, and it was used in the TV show too, the TV series they had, and yeah. Anyway, so let me continue. Let's see. So they get out, so they finally get there, they go over a bridge that's falling apart, and actually a tire falls through a little bit, but they're able to get out of there. So they drive over this wooden bridge, they get to the cabin, and it's creepy looking, which I suppose most cabins in the woods are, especially when there's no other cabins or houses or anything nearby. And there's a swing on the front that keeps banging into the side of the house or of the cabin. I think Scott knew the person that lived there. I didn't write all that down, but it doesn't matter. But anyway, he walks up to the door. There's a key over the door. And as soon as he grabs the key, the swing stops, which freaks him out a little. And then they go inside the cabin. Why do I have that there? Sorry, I'm just reading my notes.
That's okay.
That is right. Sorry, because I watched this movie the other day. So once they get into the cabin, they're unpacking their stuff, their luggage or whatever that they brought for their trip, and Cheryl withdrawing. And then there's noise, or there's a clock on the wall that's ticking, and then all of a sudden stops ticking. And then you hear this noises outside in the forest. And then it makes her hand draw on her pad something that she didn't want to draw, and it draws a little book on the pad. And that's the end of scene 1 of our top 10 scenes. But anyway, that's the end of scene 1. So what were your thoughts? Do you remember what now we can't really remember what our thoughts were when we first saw the movie, but what are your thoughts on the first scene anyway, before we get to our song?
Time stops, definitely. When the clock stops, that means time stops. And my thoughts about it was we get to see the demon's eye view in the beginning of the movie when they're driving in. We can already tell that the demons are gliding over the water and through the tangled woods. I feel like this scene definitely establishes the unnatural demonic presence, even though no characters are seen yet. And it's interesting to note, and I always wondered this, why wasn't the cast introduced first? Because in most horror movies, you see the cast in a situation where everything's happy, but we see the demon presence first before we see the cast, which is actually, it's really suspenseful. And the roaming force is never really shown directly. It just feels things. I feel like the cast already knows that something is wrong when they're coming into the cabin, and then the bridge breaks, but they continue to try to figure out, what's happening. And then the book, when she draws, she doesn't know what it is. She doesn't know. And when I first saw the movie, I thought it was just a scribble. I didn't make the connection until later on.
I think that's if you're watching the movie for the first time ever, you might not think it is a book. But of course, since I know I've seen the movie a bunch of times, of course, and I know there's a book.
I asked myself, what's the point of that? I just thought it was her. Obviously, somebody took over the pencil, but I didn't make that connection until you see the face in the book.
Now, I don't remember, like, back when the movie came out, I probably rented this. I probably didn't go to the theater to see it, I don't think. But I don't know if there was a preview of what happens in the movie, or if I just saw Evil Dead, let me watch this movie. I don't really remember that part, of course. So if you haven't watched it before, so you're watching the stuff going through the forest, you're thinking, what is that? Is that an animal? Is it a bear or something going to attack these people? What is this that's going through the forest or whatever? So you don't know. And then, like you say, you wouldn't have known it was a book unless you already know about the book. And then, so yeah, you just know that something's going to be happening, but you just don't know what's going on yet.
There's no build up. It's a complete, here we go. We're starting with the suspense right in the opening scene. The psychological suspense begins right away.
And on that drive, I didn't mention this, but you mentioned that they didn't show the demon, but they showed something demonic was happening going through the forest there. And then they almost ran into that truck that said Lazy Mary on it because the steering wheel locked up. So supposedly the demon thing made the steering wheel lock up on the car.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that happened, and they almost ran into the truck.
And actually, that scene was filmed in Michigan, that opening scene.
Was it?
It wasn't even filmed in Tennessee. I didn't know that until I researched it. But they actually were filming in Michigan when they did that. And the beams that fall are foam beams that they used in the movie. So that was interesting.
And I'm not sure, it was Ash's car. He said, I just got this tune, but I'm not sure why he wasn't driving if it was his car. But anyway, that's just, he was in the back seat for some reason. And his buddy was driving the car. So I don't understand. But it doesn't really matter. Okay, now we're going to do our song. Now we're going to, hopefully, we'll see if we ever match a song here, because we didn't talk about this. This is a surprise to us as we do each episode. Just like it'll be a surprise to you listening to it, because I'm not going to list the songs in the description. You're going to have to listen to the podcast to see what songs we pick. So let's start with you, Lonnie. What's your song for this first scene?
Classic Deicide, Dead by Dawn. So this is the 4th track on Deicide's self-titled debut album, released on June 25th, 1990. And it was released by Roadrunner Century Media. It's based on the 1981 horror film, The Evil Dead. But the song is about this movie specifically, and it was first, fun fact, it was composed by Glenn Benton, and while he was watching Beverly Hillbillies. So that I found that interesting.
I know friends that like him and the Deicide or whatever. And yeah, I think I did see an interview or something where he is a little bit out there. And he doesn't
He
necessarily
is.
listen to much death metal. He plays it, but he doesn't necessarily listen to much of it. And he likes country music, I think I read, or something like that too. It's just different.
He's interesting. He's interesting for sure.
Okay, now my first and that's another thing. She picked a death metal song. I'm not much of a death metal fan, so you're probably not going to get too many death metal songs from me. You're going to get more classic songs, and I went back to 1970 so there's not too many bands you can figure out who this is going to be, but I went with Black Sabbath song Black Sabbath, just because I thought it's an ominous, slow opening riff of the song, perfectly mirrors the unsettling atmosphere of the situation when they arrive at the cabin. And then the lyrics that Ozzy sings, "What is this that stands before me?" And of course, there's no figure, but there is a cabin and there's a doom around cabin, and the feeling they get when they go inside and when she draws that book or whatever. So there's unknown evil going on. And so that's why I picked the song Black Sabbath, which is
Almost
just
picked that one.
fitting since they just had their last show a couple weeks ago or a week ago.
I
Okay.
picked that one, so that we would have been matching.
What, you thought about that too, did you?
Yes, I did. I thought about picking that song. Maybe I'll pick that one. And then I thought, no. Decide. Dead by Dawn. Perfect.
Yeah, so these songs, like most horror movies, don't really have songs playing in them that often, do they? Comedy movies seem to do it when they're doing something, they'll have a
Yes.
song playing or whatever. So that's why this is just our soundtrack. Like maybe it would fit. Maybe if you sat there and watched the movie and had the sound off and played one of our songs, it might fit. But who knows? You tell us. Try it.
I did
Okay. Scene number 2, we're going with the basement discovery. So as the group sits down at a table for some food and drinks, and they're going to start their party time, or at least that's what they thought they were going to do. The fruit cellar door swings open. That's in the, I guess, I don't know, we call it living room. And this is actually why the podcast is called Someone's in My Fruit Cellar. Actually, it's partially because I think the second movie in Evil Dead 2, I think somebody actually says that. Someone's in my fruit cellar, I believe. But anyway, that's where I got the name for the podcast. So that's why we're doing Evil Dead first episode. So anyway, so they jump to investigate what happened. And after a bit of, you go first, and then the girl's saying, I don't want to go first. So Scott goes down to the basement to investigate, and the rest wait upstairs. And of course, they call down to Scott, and there's no response. So Ash, the second male of the 5 of them, goes down to find him, and he gets down and he's looking around, and everything's creepy looking. And of course, can't find him. And then all of a sudden, Scott jumps out and scares him and goes boo. And we get the jump scare. But they keep exploring in the basement, and they find a mysterious book, the book that we mentioned before, called the Necronomicon. Did I say that right? Yes. And they found a reel-to-reel tape recorder and an old dagger with a skull head on it. So the guys brought that stuff up because we know 3 girls want to see all this stuff. And yes, okay. So what do you think about that scene? That's a short paragraph to it, but it was a longer scene, of course, than that. But that's the gist of it.
So to me, it's suspenseful isolation. It turns from they know something is wrong to discovering, and Ash discovers the book. So it turns into a full-blown supernatural horror movie at this point. So after hearing the strange noises and experiencing small disturbances, I think the group already realizes something is off. And of course, Ash already realizes something is off about this situation. And when he discovers the book and the dagger and the artifacts, and I think the artifacts in the jars were organs of some sort.
Oh,
and it gives you that psychological anticipatory effect at what's going on. And then when Ash realizes they're awakening something they don't understand, he takes the book and with him. I would have taken the book. I would have looked at the book. Those drawings were different, and the book itself was made out of human skin in the movie, so they have all this hanging fruit in the cellar as well, which is really creepy. So he gets scared and he can't find Scott, but he doesn't really understand the discovery of the book. But Scott and Ash, I feel like they brushed it off. So they're playing with the shotgun, and Scott points the shotgun at Ash's face, and it's definitely they feel that something is off. But I think they try to brush it off to try to protect the girls from getting scared, because they're
yeah.
standing at the top of the cellar, they're looking down, they're wondering what's going on, but they know something is wrong in that
Yeah.
scene. Yeah, they definitely.
But Scott seems more cool, or whatever you want to say, where he's not really scared too much or anything yet. But you can see Ash is a little nervous, and what is this stuff, and why is it down here, or whatever.
He is, and I feel Ash is the character who grows up in the movie. He's very naive. He doesn't have much courage, and that builds up as the movie goes along. But when he finds the book, he's intrigued by it, and that starts the psychological suspense in the movie. What is this book, and what is it about? Yeah, he did get scared when he couldn't find Scott's. Yeah, there's a lot of suspense. The suspense is slow in the movie, but that's what keeps the psychological anticipatory effect going, in my opinion, in that scene.
And this is the most horror of the first 3 Evil Dead movies, because the second one it's still horror, but it gets more funny and slapsticky and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And of course, Army of Darkness is way away from it. And whatever. And then, but see, if somebody started watching the TV series, Ash versus Evil Dead, because Ash is in it and he's like a hero and he's fighting all the Deadites or whatever. But if you go back to watch this one, you'd be like, wow, he's really different in this movie, especially at the start of the movie, where he's like nervous and scared or whatever and stuff like that. So it's little. And one other thing about the basement, of course, there was a poster. Did you see the poster down there?
I did see the poster. And I have a little bit of notes here. Let me pull them up of what I found about that and how that relates to the movie. So the Hills Have Eyes poster, that one that's in the background. Okay, so supposedly Sam Raimi and Wes Craven had been communicating back and forth with each other. And it was a diss towards Wes Craven. Sam Raimi did that on purpose. He put that Hills Have Eyes poster up. He tore it in half just to say, no matter how scary Hills Have Eyes is not as scary as what you're watching right now. So I thought that was interesting. It was a little diss toward Wes Craven in that movie.
In 1977, that one, so 4 years earlier. And I have seen that movie, but I'm pretty sure I saw it after I saw Evil Dead, I think. And maybe I watched it because I probably read that too, or heard that in DVD extra or something about that. But yeah.
What did you think about that poster?
Pardon?
What did you think about that poster?
I don't know when. I probably never even noticed it until I saw one of these DVD extras or something, or maybe listening to another podcast about this episode where they said about the Hills Have Eyes posters. I probably didn't even pay attention to it. I only know about it now because I already know about it now, but I don't think I paid attention to it during the first one. Now, maybe if I would have seen the Hills Have Eyes, it would have popped out to me. But since I didn't see that first, I don't think I even noticed it till after. So
I didn't notice it either. I didn't.
Yes, because I know there's lots of things in there that he paid homage to other, and I know a lot of horror movies especially do that, where they'll throw things in there from other horror movies or references or something like that. But okay, so now I guess I'll go first on this one. So my song for this one, this was a little I don't know, it's hard to do for this one, but I picked Iron Maiden's song Still Life from their Peace of Mind album, which was 1983. Just because, I don't know, in that song, it's a kind of a horror movie kind of song, but it's about a swimming pool and demons are in the swimming pool. So I guess I'm referencing the swimming pool. Now it's a book instead of a swimming pool. And just because there's a backwards message at the start of Still Life, and then there's a slower eerie build up in the song. And so that's why I went with that one for scene 2. And what about you?
I, again, went with death metal. I went with the old-time original band Death, Evil Dead song. And that was the same year the movie came out in 1980. A little bit. No, it was a little bit after, 1983. Scream Bloody Gore album. And that was written by Chuck Schuldiner. The track was originally performed by his pre-death band Montas, and it appeared on the 1983 Death by Metal before being re-recorded for Death's debut album, Scream Bloody Gore, in 1987. This track is as well based on this movie, so that's why I picked that one.
So the lyrics from the song are about the movie, then, are they? Okay.
Yes.
I obviously know who Death are, but I never really listened to them too much. Did you know that that Chuck fired the first singer of Death because he ate his Fruit Loops?
That's interesting. I did not know that about him. Ha!
I can't. He's in.
Don't eat my Fruit Loops.
As long as the person that got fired is telling the truth. Because I know a guy in Germany. He's an American, but he's in Germany now. But he has a podcast, and he used to have a metal podcast with this guy that used to be the singer of Death before they released an album. So he was just on demos. He wasn't on the albums. But he's in a group called Massacre now.
Okay, yes.
But he was fired. He was supposedly fired because he ate Fruit Loops before Chuck could have his Fruit Loops or something.
Oh,
like that.
no.
I don't know. It's got to be more to it than just that, but I don't know. That's what he says. Okay, so now we get to our next section, and this is number 3, and we're going to call it Playing the Tape. So the group sits around and listens to the tape, which contains a professor's recordings of demonic incantations. Cheryl is the first one that gets a little freaked out about it and wants to stop it. But of course, Scott, the macho guy there, he wants to hear it all. So he tells her to shut up or whatever. And they listen to the rest of it. And as the recording plays, it unwittingly to them is summoning, and I guess there was already an evil force out there, but I guess they needed this to be read out loud for it to gather more force. I'm not really sure maybe you have some ideas on that. I'm not sure, but anyway, so they listened to the tape. Cheryl was the one that was most freaked out from it. And I have a question for you. I'm thinking I know the answer. But so if you found this tape, this reel-to-reel tape player, and you're already a little freaked out, maybe, would you listen to it?
I would listen to it. I think Ash was looking for answers because he already knew there was something up. He knew. And I would listen to the tape because maybe there would be some answers as to what all of this heaviness is, what's happening here, all those little incidences that had been happening. Maybe there's some answers. Maybe this can help us. So yeah, I would definitely. Would you?
Oh, probably. Yeah, because you would. Yeah, because I don't know. Can I put myself into the movie where? Because you're hearing because of course you're watching the movie and you're seeing the stuff going through the forest, But those guys, they're not seeing that. They might hear some noises outside, but you're in a forest. It could be animals walking through the forest, people, whatever, going over branches. So it's, yeah. So I think, sure, I'd listen to the tape. I'd probably think, hey, maybe this is some heavy metal real recording that was lost or whatever.
Yes, you know who the voice is on the tape?
No, I do not.
Bob Dorian.
And who's that?
He was a film recorder out in New York City, and they had to basically beg him to do it.
Now, I probably did hear that once because I bought every Evil Dead, not everything, but they released a lot of DVDs later and extras and stuff. So I probably did hear that once. Yeah. And now, like you said earlier, yeah, the book is supposedly covered in human skin, and then the words are written in blood inside of the drawings or whatever.
It summons demons, open portals, and resurrects the dead. So this is what they were playing with.
Yeah. And this book is throughout all the Evil Dead movies and then the Evil Dead TV series. There's always a thing about the book in the movies. Not so much the ones after, like Evil Dead Rise, which is the one that I mentioned that I like, but there's no book, but it's just a different take on it with the records playing instead. Yeah. And also in that scene, I didn't mention it in that about part, there's a weird scene. When you watch it now, it's a weird scene, but Ash had a gift for Linda, his girlfriend, and it was a necklace or a pendant on a necklace. And there's this little comedic thing with him pretending he's sleeping and there's cameras zooming in on their eyes. I'm not really sure the point of this.
Her eyes are weird. Did you look at how creepy her eyes were?
But so maybe that was it and whatever. And then they kiss, and that's the closest we get to any teenager or whatever sex in this movie was that. And not necessarily, but we'll get to that later. But anyway. So do you have anything else to add on the scene, or did you?
I think this scene is definitely the most critical turning point in the film. It marks the exact moment an ancient evil is unleashed. So when they play this, what is the quote? I can't pronounce it. I can't even say the different language that's in there, but apparently that translates into something completely different that we would have never even imagined. Sam Raimi actually said that the different language that's in there translates into Sam and Rob are the hitchhikers on the road. I thought that was interesting. But I think the scene's atmosphere is dense, really dreadful. Sam really masterfully uses minimalism in this scene where he isolates while they're listening to the tape to build the tension in the scene, to show us what's coming next. And they call it the force. This is called the awakening of when they listen to the recording. It's called, quote unquote, the force.
And yeah, I forgot about that moment with the hitchhikers. And he was honking. I don't know why he honked the horn, I forget, but the hitchhikers, I guess he was honking at them, so they waved that.
They were drinking moonshine too in that car scene, by the way.
Okay, so what song did you pick for this scene?
I think you're gonna like this one. I picked Metallica, The Thing That Should Not Be. The Thing That Should Not Be is the third track on Metallica's 1986 album, Master of Puppets. And it's one of their darkest and heaviest songs. And it's heavily inspired by the cosmic horror of H.P. Lovecraft. So I thought that was interesting and fits the scene perfectly.
Well, guess what? My song was also The Thing That Should Not Be.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it was going to be that. I knew that we were going to have at least one that was the same.
So we already didn't know if we would do that or not. And we've already done it. Third song of our podcast.
Then it must fit in there perfectly then.
Because, yeah, I guess the playing of the tape is something happens that should not be. And exactly. Yeah, it's one of my favorite Metallica songs. And my first ever email address when I got on the internet, I used thing. The word thingy was my people would call me thingy because I used it because they had a live album and instead of listening to whole songs, they would just put one word and it said thingy for this song. So I stole that. That was my email address for years.
Such a great track.
Thingy. But yes, that's and I guess that was a quicker one because we both had the same song. So here we go. So we'll see if we can match again later. Here we go. Number 4. We got on to Cheryl's possession here. So Cheryl becomes the first victim. After hearing strange noises outside, she ventures into the woods where she is violently attacked. As she stands out in the woods, she calls to see if anybody's out there. Then all of a sudden, the trees start coming to life and their branches wrap around her legs and take her to the ground. And she's, of course, screaming, but they can't hear her. Guess I'm not really sure how far away she is from the cabin, but I guess far enough that they can't hear her. And so they wrap her around her neck and they ripped her robe open and we get to see some boobs for the first time. Or actually for the second time, because I think she was changing in the cabin also or something, and there was something there.
Boobs, half boobs.
Yeah. And then the branches spread her legs apart, and then a big branch goes into the where. And after that, whatever pleasure or pain, I'm assuming pain, since she was screaming, I guess that could be the same. But anyway, after she breaks through, I'm not sure why they would just let her go after that. But anyway, she runs back to the cabin. And she could feel it coming at her and she couldn't get the door open. Of course, nobody for some reason in a small cabin can't hear her pounding on the door. But she remembers the key is above the door. She grabs the key and of course she's fumbling with it, but she finally gets in and gets the door closed before anything else attacks her. So that's the end of that scene. So what do you think of this fun scene?
Yes, Ash opens the door. She's fumbling with the keys, but fun fact is the vines were actually shot in reverse motion, and that was the only way that they could do it. This is my favorite scene in the movie. Of course, a lot of people have that same viewpoint, and I think it marks her possession, and it also is the beginning of the character's descent into supernatural terror at this point. The atmosphere in this scene is really thick. You can feel that claustrophobic moment when she's alone in the woods, that dread and feeling of shock when she's attacked by the trees. And then shortly after, Ash does play the tape that recites that Sumerian incantations. It really sparks that in him, and then she becomes the first victim eventually. Of course, I don't know why she was in the woods by herself. I feel like she was out there a lot, outside, and she was already freaked out. And if I was her, I wouldn't have been going outside to see what was going on. I wouldn't have been that curious. So props to her.
Yeah, not by yourself anyway.
And in your robe.
And she was already freaked out anyway.
Yes, she was already freaked out from the beginning.
Yeah.
And she went out there half dressed with little shoes and slippers on, and I don't know why she did that. She was curious, that's for sure. But the atmosphere definitely evokes that absolute terror blood. And then Cheryl begs to leave when she's back into the cabin, and I'm surprised that she made it back to the cabin at that point. I'm surprised that the force let her survive.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The tree just went in there and then I guess retreated and let her go.
Yes, and I'm not sure why that it did that, but that definitely had to be painful.
Maybe if it was, because I wrote down it was tree sex, so maybe the tree was finished.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's perfect.
And so he's going to have a cigarette or whatever, I guess, a tree. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so that was probably, one of the best scenes, of course, of this movie, and most shocking, I guess you would call it. and maybe more real actually than some of the other scenes when you get some of the stuff they had to use. I'm sure we'll get into later for blood and guts and stuff.
I feel like she ran a long way back to the cabin. Too.
Yes.
She was definitely in the brush.
We know a lot of people make stupid decisions in horror movies. It's like, why are you doing that for? And yes, why is a person that's scared already going out into the woods by herself?
And then she goes out again later we'll get to it, but with Ash, when she wants to leave, I'm thinking, you're outside way too much. Way too much right now.
It seems funny too, in a way. Not funny, but weird about what's going on. But we'll get to that in a sec. Okay, so our song here now, mine is, I went by, that's the title, I guess. It's matching, I think, or whatever. So I went with Cradle of Filth. And from their Bittersweets to Sukubi, I hope I'm saying that right, album in 2001, the song called Scorched Earth Erotica.
That's a really good pick. I like that.
And I guess they were still called black metal back then, Cradle of Filth. I'm not really sure. They might have already sold out, supposedly, to real black metal fans or whatever, because I don't really listen to black metal. I just like Cradle of Filth. But some of the lyrics in the song, they might go with it too, as I put that down. Darkness, undress your descending skirts, yield a thirsting altar, blood red, yet still unfed. I don't know. I just thought that kind of had something to do because she didn't have a skirt on, but she had clothes on and whatever. And I was also thinking one other Cradle of Filth song, her Ghost in the Fog, which is also because there's a lot of fog in this. So I also thought about that song, but I went with this one just because I thought it had Scorched Earth Erotica. I thought it matched the scene. And what track do you got?
So I have the Black Dahlia Murders song Raped and Hatred by Vines of Thorn. And that song was released on June 11, 2013 by Metal Blade Records. Specifically for that scene, they did create this track for that scene. So I had to give them props for that. And it definitely serves that direct homage to the infamous vine rape scene in The Evil Dead, because when I was watching the movie, I actually played this song with that scene, and it was incredibly on point. They did hit the mark with that song, so that's why I chose it.
Now I'm not much of I don't listen to Black Dahlia Murder, but for people that could be interested, the singer that is passed away, of course, but his widower was a guest on my Metal Pit podcast, and we talked about a Lamb of God album. Yeah, so if you want to listen to that, go search that out in the Metal Pit podcast for Lamb of God. I think we've only done one Lamb of God episode, but she was one of the guests on that episode.
Rest in peace, Trevor.
Yes. Okay, now we go to number 5, Cheryl's transformation. So Cheryl, of course, she's already had something happen to her, so wants Ash to take her to town, like you mentioned. And so, of course, they get into the car, won't start. And she says, oh, they're not going to let us leave. And then the car starts. And then Ash is, oh, see, they're going to let us leave. You're crazy, lady. And so they drive out to the bridge. But he senses something's wrong. So he stops the car and gets out and goes off on his own to look and leaves Cheryl in the car. And, of course, she's waiting and calling for Ash. And he doesn't come. So she goes to look for him out in the woods by herself again. And I'm not really sure where Ash went. I don't know if he had to go to the bathroom or something. I don't really understand where he went. Because you think he would just walk straight on the road that they were on and see that the bridge is out. But for some reason, he went somewhere else. But they saw that the bridge was out and that they couldn't leave. And so, where was I here? Yeah, it's not going to let us leave. So they have to go back to the cabin, and they go back into the house. And that's where Cheryl transforms into, I'm calling it a deadite. I know, a demon, whatever. They weren't called deadite back then, but we already mentioned that. and she has a demonic voice come from her throat or whatever. And it says, "We will take you one by one. We will take you." She starts attacking the group, and she has like this superhuman strength. And then Scott has to hit her a bunch of times and knock her down into the fruit cellar, and then close the door and put the chains on the door to keep her down there. So, what do you think of this scene?
I think she shouldn't have been outside again. That's my opinion. But she was already possessed at that point, right?
Yes.
Just hadn't turned fully. I think that the transformation scene is definitely one of the most iconic and memorable, terrifying moments of the film. And it marks the full demonic possession depicted on screen, which is the first one. And it shifts the fear from subtle to dread and then to full-blown supernatural chaos at this point when they realize that the fridge is broken, they can't leave, and the girls inside are unaware. They're sitting there playing cards, and Cheryl starts reading off those cards when they come back. And
yeah,
I don't know why the friend was lying to her about what she was guessing, but she was lying. But then when she screams after her transformation, and then her body levitates and her voice drops several octaves, they know that something is definitely wrong at this point. And she shouts, "You will die like the others before you. One by one, we will take you." And then the stabbing part in the ankle was extremely precise. And Sam Raimi did do that specifically to get that Achilles tendon effect. And when I first saw the movie, I had to look away at that part. I think it's one of the best stabbing in horror movie history. And I know it's not much, but it's so accurate looking.
We should mention that you're a nurse, so you know that it looks accurate, because I would.
Yeah, as a nurse, if you look at it today, you know it's fake. But when I first saw the movie, that was actually realistic. And if you, that would be the exact spot that you would hit the Achilles, and then they just keep turning it and ripping it. And even though I watch it today, I still have to stop myself from looking away because it's such an accurate spot to hit somebody. And it's definitely, you can feel it, and I can feel it in my own ankle when they do it. So yes, they definitely hit the mark with that stabbing for sure.
And that was a pencil, right? That she used.
It was a pencil.
Yes.
Yes.
And then Scott had an axe that he was hitting her with, not with the axe part, but with the handle part to knock her into the cellar there.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and let's see, whose turn is it? You. What's your song for this one?
I chose Suffocation, Funeral Inception. This is a track that was released on January 6, 1998 by Vulture Records. And this track, it definitely captures that claustrophobic and relentless energy in this scene. Props to New York death metal scene for creating that track. I think it fits perfectly in this scene, especially with the transformation of Cheryl.
Now, I went off a bit. I guess this is probably my only non-metal song on this one. So I went with Pink Floyd's song from 1969.
Good.
Called Careful with That Axe, Scott. No, it was Careful with That Axe, Eugene, actually, is the name of the song. It's from their Gumma album. It's an instrumental, but it's also fits the song, or fits the scene, because it's a slow instrumental build up with some eerie whispering in it, some breathy sounds, and then Roger Waters lets out an unhinged scream that kind of feels like Cheryl's first screaming and stuff. So it's a good horror kind of instrumental track from Pink Floyd there many years ago. And I remember my brother had that album, I think, and I thought, what the heck is that thing? But I don't think I listened to it back then. I didn't listen to Pink Floyd until later.
That's a great track. Definitely fit.
Okay, now we go. Now, I did think about using the song. Let me make sure I didn't use the song. No, I didn't. By Venom called Possessed. I thought about using that there, and then I also thought about using that on this one, but I didn't because I thought that's too easy. But anyway, so now we get to scene 6, which is Shelley possession. So Shelley is the next to fall victim. She attacks Scott and they get into a big battle. Scott cuts her hand with the big knife. I don't know, was that with the just a knife? I think it was. Oh, sorry.
The dagger?
I don't know. I forget. Was it the dagger or was it just a knife? I can't remember. No, I just watched the movie yesterday, but doesn't matter. Anyway, Shelley chomps through. So she chomps through her own wrist with her mouth and teeth and rips her hand off her body. And then she is stabbed with the demonic dagger in the back by Scott. And when you think she is dead, of course, she springs up, and then Scott has to take the axe previously mentioned to her, and he chops up her body into different parts, and the parts continue to shake on the floor, and they gather up her parts, take them out to the woods, and bury them. So what do you have about this scene? Your words, that is.
Yes. So the scene is shocking. It's frantic. And it happens after Cheryl has already turned. But it's signaling that the demonic force is now actively targeting the rest of the group. So now we see there's been one transformation and now another. So the group is starting to realize at this point they're coming after all of us. And the atmosphere, I find it's a blend of dread, sudden violence, especially when she gets chopped up by Scott. And then the group starts to have this overwhelming panic. Ash standing in the corner, not knowing what to do. And despite those high tensions, there's a moment of false calm in that scene as well, when the characters hope the worst is over with the possessions. So Shelley goes to lie down after getting stabbed in the ankle, but she's still rattled by the situation. I think it's definitely the most grotesque part of the movie when Scott chops her up. Ash is in the corner. He's not sure what to do. And after the fact, what do we do? She's a friend of ours. She's dead. What are we going to do with her now? We got to bury her. And the effects in the movie were really cool, especially back then as well, because everything's shaking on the floor, arms and legs and torso. And fun fact, they had an actor underneath the floorboards. They had an actor that would stick their leg up over the floorboards, had to remove the floorboards. A very intricate way that Sam put that scene together. It was definitely a very violent part of the movie, for sure.
Yeah, and when she got stabbed in the back, the screaming from Shelley was horrific screaming.
It's marked as the longest scream in motion picture history. So
is it
longest
really?
scream in motion picture history?
Yeah, I was watching this thinking, geez, she's screaming for a long time here.
Yes.
I guess it hurt, and then I don't know if it was supposed to be funny. Like later, like Evil Dead 2, you would know when something was funny. So I don't know if it was supposed to be funny, but yeah, they chopped her up in the little parts, and then Scott says we have to bury her, and then Ash says we can't bury her. She's a friend of ours. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you just chopped her body up in the little parts.
Scott says she's dead.
So I don't know if that was supposed to be funny or not, but yeah, that was I would mention it earlier where Ash like you would if this was the first time. If you went back to see this movie after seeing everything else, you think, wow, he's really a wuss until maybe after this, but he's standing in the corner. He didn't want to do anything. And Scott's doing everything and
Yeah.
fending
He
off.
had no courage, Ash, but he ends up growing up
Yeah.
towards the end, right?
Yeah. It starts after this scene. Okay. And now our song here, I went with Slayer. And I got from the Rain and Blood album, 1986, and I went with Angel of Death. And the reasoning is just because it's Shelley possessed, and I guess she's an angel of death. It's a vicious turn where why do I have I have the wrong name there, but anyway. But just the speed and aggression of the Angel of Death song by Slayer, which I guess could be said about a lot of Slayer songs, but that's just the unrelenting intensity of the song, and the chaotic solos mirror the malicious actions that happened here with the newly possessed Shelley, right? Shelley, yes.
Yes.
Because Linda's the one that's got the stab.
Linda's got the stab
yes.
wound. She's in bed, sleeping.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. Transforming as we speak.
Yeah. Okay, so what song do you have?
I went really brutal death metal here because this is a brutal scene. I chose Disgorgeous, She Lay Gutted. And that's the second full-length album released on November 9, 1999 by Unique Leader Records. I think it captures that brutalness of the scene where she gets chopped up in little bits. It was definitely the scene that most people will remember from this movie. And even though the Vine scene's my favorite, that scene is the one that's talked about the most because it's the most brutal scene in the movie, in my opinion.
And there's lots of, is there milk coming? It looks like there's milk coming out of one of the
That's
bodies.
2% milk.
Or is that later?
2% milk is what I was told. And oatmeal that's coming out of the arm. That's oatmeal.
Yeah, it's funny because like now you got CGI and all that stuff, or AI too now that help with effects and things in movies.
And stuntmen. They didn't have stuntmen in those days. And the fog that you were talking about was an oil-based fog. So they were constantly coughing. Yeah. They went through a lot to make this movie, that's for sure.
Yeah, there's lots of fog. And I also made a mention that, or I made a note to myself anyway, that I thought it was funny that Shelley thanked Scott for pulling her out of the fireplace. That she's a very polite Deadite demon.
That's a good point, because I was thinking, and I still think to this day, what if he would have burned her up? Would the demonic force have gone away? Because the book ends up being burned.
Yes.
And that's probably why she thanked him.
I guess he pulled her out because he thought it was still Shelley, right?
Salvageable. Yeah.
And so, I guess, and she thanked him, so she was nice enough.
I know. How polite of her.
Before she tried to kill him again. Okay. Okay, so now we get to our number 7 scene. So this is, I guess, Ash's struggle here as he checks on his girlfriend, Linda, who, like we said, stabbed by the pencil there in the ankle. But then all of a sudden, Linda turns into one of these things, and she sits on the floor. That's Linda. Sorry, I think I got some names mixed up here. Maybe.
Yeah,
Linda's sitting on the floor laughing and cackling, and Ash gets the rifle out and is about to shoot her, but he can't do it because he's a wussy so far. Then she turns back into Linda and asks for Ash's help. And then Cheryl's voice comes out from the basement saying, "I'm okay now, Ash, let me out," talking in her normal voice. And he goes, and then he believes it and just thinks that she's okay now. So he goes to unlock the door. But then Cheryl turns back into a Deadite and tries to get Ash. And then his girlfriend, Linda, turns back into a Deadite again and starts singing a little song. And Ash drags Linda's body out into the yard. I don't know if I should have ended the scene there, but I did.
I have a
Oh,
lot to
because I
say
think
about
I
this.
added
Yeah.
our part. Yeah, I added the other stuff later. But anyway, I'm ending that scene there. So what do you think of what happened there then?
Definitely Ash is still being a wuss, but I can see why, because they keep changing back into their original form and still demonic, but Ash is trapped. I feel he's trapped between his possessed sister Cheryl and his possessed girlfriend Linda. The scene is definitely an iconic moment of pure psychological and emotional torment because they're tormenting him with relentless energy. It's deeply tragic. They're mocking him, they're cruel, and that eventually makes Ash collapse emotional. He has an emotional collapse. He's feeling stuck. Are they alive? Are they not alive? And he's fighting for the people he loves, but still in denial that they're now possessed. And the scene is definitely personal and tormenting for Ash. I think this is the turning point for Ash as well, where he's not going to be so much of a wuss anymore. I have a lot to say. The contact lenses that she was wearing were only supposed to be worn. They were made of glass and they were custom made and they were only supposed to be worn for 15 minutes, 5 times a day during shooting. But they had her wearing them for 2/3 of the movie. So she says in an interview that when she went to get contact lenses years later, she had a meltdown in the eye doctor's office and couldn't wear the contacts because she had worn them so much and she couldn't see out of those contacts either. So when you see when she's trying to stab Ash, she doesn't even know where she's stabbing him. And there's a lot of realness there where Ash or Bruce is scared because he's afraid he's going to get stabbed. I thought that was a really interesting fact.
I did read about the contact lenses where they couldn't even see out of them. Not like now where it's probably easy to wear them all day and be able to see out of them, but still look scary or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so what song do you have for this one?
I chose a good, soft song for Ash because I feel like he was conflicted with love and torment at the same time. So I picked Dio Don't Talk to Strangers.
Mm.
Dio's debut solo album, Holy Diver.
Yes.
I thought that fit perfectly for the scene. They were mocking him, and he was stuck between love and the demonic forces and trying to save Cheryl and Linda.
And he was talking to strangers because he was talking
He was talking to demonic forces.
to the
That's
demons.
exactly why I put
They
that
were
there.
sounding like not strangers, but so yeah, that's good. And so I went with another old song here. I went with Led Zeppelin in 1975, In My Time of Dying. You know, I think, was this the hardest? This is, I think, the second hardest song for me to do on. I didn't know, but I thought it's a bluesy, haunting, hard rock epic, and the groaning slide guitar in the song and the dark lyrics work well with the moment. And Ash is dealing with his emotional devastation and the creeping dread that is still upon us or coming or could be coming or whatever. So yeah, and that was from their Physical Graffiti album. I love Led Zeppelin, so I wanted to get a Led Zeppelin song in there, or I didn't want to, but I thought this kind of fits. Even though he's not dying, or he could be dying, I guess we don't know.
Everybody else around him is dying.
Yes, that's right. It should be In My Time of everyone else dying. Okay, number 8. Now we got to Linda attacking, I guess, as Linda gets back into the cabin. I don't know. I guess he just dragged her outside and didn't do anything else with her. So she just got up and comes back in. I don't know. Oh, is that when Is that when he pushed that little table in front of the door because he thought that would hold out the demon? I don't know, but he pulled up a little desk and put it in front of the door because he thought that would hold her out. But yeah, that didn't work. But anyway, so they're fighting back and forth, whatever. She falls to the ground, and then I see some of this milk like liquid I was talking about before. Spits out of her mouth, and I'm pretty sure the relationship is over now. I don't know. That's my thoughts on it. Ash then takes Linda's body out to the tool shed and chains her up so she can't get out. And then he grabs a chainsaw and he wants to chop up her body with a chainsaw. But again, he still isn't over this and he just can't do it. So he takes her body out to bury it. And then Cheryl inside in the cellar gets the cellar door open. And but he doesn't know that, of course, because he's outside. So he's burying her body. But then when he thinks he's got her buried, she breaks out of the ground, attacks him. He attacks her with a big wooden beam, which was probably made of styrofoam, which you said before. And then she knocks him over and lays on the ground, and Linda's body jumps up at him, and he grabs a shovel and decapitates her. And now the relationship is over. And then we got blood, of course, going all over Ash's face, which we know happens a lot more in later movies. But that's the start of it. He goes back into the cabin. And yes, end scene. Sorry, that was the end of that scene. So what do you think about that?
So the blood is actually Caro syrup. Did you know? It was used throughout the movie, and they added red food coloring and some blue food coloring to make it look realistic. Supposedly, it was so sticky and so cold in Tennessee that year that when they would take their clothes off at the end of shooting, they had to peel their clothes off, and they would actually peel their skin off at the same time. But in this scene, I find it's a chaotic blend of surreal horror and emotional manipulation. Unlike Cheryl, she was more explosive, monstrous. Linda's attack is quietly disturbing. And I feel like the mood is driven by her eerie mockery of innocence. So Ash is going back and forth between how he feels about her. But then once he has her on the table and he's ready to chop her up with a chainsaw, which was they actually did that. He sees that magnifying glass necklace, and that stops him from doing it.
Oh, yeah, the gift he gave her.
That cheap gift. But that's what they say. Sam Raimi said that it was supposed to be different. It was supposed to be they were going to use that prop as something completely different, but then he decided to use that in the scene where he presents that magnifying glass to her. Supposedly that magnifying glass was going to be used as one of the end scenes where Ash holds it up to the sunlight and it comes in and burns the demonic forces, but he changed his mind about that. Decided we're going to make this a love story. But I think it's definitely unsettling in Linda's childlike state, and he starts yelling at her, "Shut up." So I think he's fed up with her at this point. I think you're right. The relationship is definitely over.
I want my necklace back. But yeah, she has a lot of demonic laughter in that scene too. They're like cackling or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Okay. And my song for this, now I went Canadian here since I am Canadian. I guess I didn't really mention that at the start for anybody that might not listen to the Metal Pit podcast. So now you're here. I am a Canadian. So I thought I'd get a Canadian group in here. So I'm going with the group Sacrifice. Do you know them?
I do know them.
Okay, I'm going back to their I'm not sure I think this is their second album, Forward Determination, 1987. The song Reanimation. Because I thought it fits to where Linda rises from the grave like a screaming banshee, and she's reanimating again and coming back to life until he cuts her head off. And yes, it's a great song. If you don't know Sacrifice or great Canadian thrash band who had a few albums back in the 80s. And last year they came back after like 20 years and had another album, and it's good too. And that's called Volume 6. So I guess they only have 6 albums, but they had 5 good ones back in their 80s in the heyday. And so I had to get a Canadian band in here. So there we go. What's your song for this scene?
I chose Cannibal Corpse, Staring Through the Eyes of the Dead. And that was released on April 12th, 1994, as the opening track on their 4th studio album, The Bleeding. The track is classic for feeling trapped in a decaying body, and it's a perfect metaphor for Linda's possession.
Cool. Now, yeah, I see Cannibal Corpse could also be another group that could fit into probably every horror movie.
Definitely. Slayer and Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah. But I don't listen to that. I think I only listened to a little Cannibal Corpse. I remember there's a cemetery that's only a couple blocks from my house, and I would walk my dog there, and I had headphones on, and I was listening to Cannibal Corpse, and this probably isn't listening to the cemetery.
It also captures that moment when Linda is taunting Ash by pretending to be dead. He keeps looking at her and turning back before he buries her. I thought that was interesting. I don't know what that's about. She definitely was manipulating him quite a bit.
Okay, now we got scene 9, which is the final confrontation with Cheryl and Scott. So Ash comes back into the cabin like he did after he chopped his girlfriend's head off. And he's searching for Cheryl because he sees the basement door is open. And he goes down to I'm not sure. I guess he's going down to the basement. I'm not sure if he's looking for her. I'm not sure why he'd be looking for her. But anyway, he sees a pipe up in the ceiling in the basement, and it looks like it's leaking like blood or something. And of course, because we know how much Evil Dead franchise likes to have blood flying everywhere. So of course it opens up and goes all over his face. And Ash loads up his boomstick, which they probably didn't call it the boomstick back then. But anyway, he goes back upstairs in the cabin thinking about what he has to do. Then all of a sudden, Scott comes back to life as a deadite, of course, and attacks Ash. And so they have a little fight there thing. Ash pokes his fingers into Scott's eyes. Cheryl breaks into the room, not sure where she was. Then Cheryl and Scott are attacking Ash. And he's using that necklace, right? This is where he's trying to get the book as close to the fireplace. So he's thinking if he burns the book, maybe that'll kill them or whatever. And so he's using this neck because he can't reach it because one of them's holding his feet. And so he can't crawl to get the book. So he's using this necklace that he gave his girlfriend as a gift to try to get it to catch on to the book and pull it towards. I don't know how hard that would be. But he did do it, and he got the book, and he threw it into the fire, and then it destroyed them, and they all transformed, and oozing stuff everywhere, blah, 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 blah. So what do you think of that scene?
I think this is the scene where Ash finally realizes he's alone. And grows a pair. But the final confrontation is definitely an apocalyptic experience for Ash. The cabin is collapsing around him. The forces of evil are at their most ferocious at this point. And I feel a sense of sensory overload. Ash is realizing he's alone. He's realizing what has been done so far. And I don't know how he got that necklace to hook on to the book, but he did. I still wonder.
I think he did. I think he took it off her when he put her in the ground outside or something. I remember.
Yeah, he did. He took it off, put it in his pocket. But how does that necklace hook on to that book? They
were reaching for something.
Yeah, and he's also hallucinating in this scene a little bit when he's sitting on the couch. And I think the attack on Scott was hard for me to watch when I first saw the movie. He sticks his fingers right in his eyes. Oh, it's so gross. But I think in the scene, he's wondering if it's all going to end and if he's going to walk away alive. And you see him leaving the cabin, and the demonic forces are still stalking him as well.
Yeah, they're still saying join us, even though.
Yes, he's still getting stalked, and he's realizing at this point, I'm alone. I'm by myself.
And I know one thing that, as this was when Ash went back into the cabin and he's trying to find them, and he's walking, and they're showing camera from the ceiling, and he walks by a beam, and then there's a noise that it makes every time he walks by a beam.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure why they did that, but it's if you're in a car and you pass another car, so there'll be the sound of passing the car. So that's what it was, where he'd walk by a beam each year.
Yeah, and the 45-degree angle shot, Sam Raimi said every single part of this scene is going to be 45-degree angle, which I think was really captured that isolation in this scene. Ash is alone, and he's realizing that he's got to grow up and have some courage. He's going to die.
Okay, so my it's me, right? Yeah, my song for this. I went with another Canadian group here from 1985, Thor. You know Thor?
I do.
And I went from their, I think it's a debut album, Only the Strong, the song Let the Blood Run Red.
Perfect.
And I think that's one where the title just kind of goes with it. The Thor he's a great big muscular guy who like the bend bars on stage and stuff. But it's just going by the title mostly, because Let the Blood Run Red. And I guess that song can go with lots of horror movies too, really. But anyway, what's your track then?
So I picked the classic, the one, Slayer, Rain and Blood, released on October 20, 1986. And Slayer's Rain and Blood features relentless aggression that doesn't let up from start to finish, which I think is fitting for the scene specifically. And of course, the light bulb filling with blood. That's another iconic moment. Just like the ankle stabbing, you see the light bulb, there's blood just pouring into the cabin, and then the light bulb fills with blood, and you see a shot of the outlet that has blood coming out of it. So I just thought the song fit this scene. And I'm sure it would fit in a lot of other
that
scenes
song
as well.
could also be in many horror movies.
Exactly.
So now I can't use it on the next one.
I'm sorry.
I think I did. I don't know. I know I thought about Slayer could have been a bunch of times here, but I just went with that other song there. And Metallica was the other group I had two songs on. But I'm not going to mention the song, but I did have two Metallica songs on when I first did this. And I went, wait, I don't want to repeat somebody. And I think that was for like the second or third scene, whatever scene I didn't use them in up there. But anyway, so now we get to the final moment of the movie. This is just a short little blurb here as the nightmarish ordeal seems to end with dawn, the dawn of the day, and not the dawn of the day, but the dawn of the day. And Ash is the sole survivor, of course, and he goes outside and it's sunny out and stuff, and not really sure what he's thinking, but he's just looking around and he thinks everything is okay. But then, of course, the demon, whatever force comes through the wood, or not through the wood, I guess it comes through the house, right? Out to where he's standing, and he screams, and that's how the movie ends. Do you have any? Now, I can't remember. I should have watched Evil Dead 2 to remember how Evil Dead 2 starts, but I think it just starts with him at the cabin still, right? I think. Do you remember?
I thought it started with the car again.
Oh, did it? Because, see, I don't know if they made the movie not knowing they were going to make more or not, because
they actually didn't own the rights to the movie. So they started Evil Dead 2 with a new cast with Ash, correct? And then they go back to the same cabin.
Okay.
And yeah, they didn't, for some reason, but Sam Raimi's vision for the movie is that everything dies. Even the music in the credits is going to die. So I think he really captured the essence of starting at a single leaf when Ash is outdoors at this point. Starting at a single leaf and just moving that camera in a first person perspective up to Ash. But we'll have to do Evil Dead 2 sometime.
We definitely will.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if he did leave. So there's no like story. Of course, there's no thing like how did he get out? Did he find that trail? I think that Scott said over the trail because there's no roads around and the bridge
And the
is
bridge is down.
unless the
So
bridge
how did he
came
get
back.
out?
But they didn't say anything about that, of course, because it just ended. Anyway, so what's your track for the closing of the movie?
Tell me yours first. Because I think we
Well,
picked the same
is it my
one.
turn? It's my turn anyway, isn't it? Okay. I went with a suicidal tendency song. Now I went with How Will I Laugh Tomorrow When I Can't Even Smile Today from 1988. And my reasoning is just all his friends are dead. So how is he going to go on? How will he laugh tomorrow if he can't smile today? Because all his friends are dead. And even when the movie ends, maybe he's dead too, because we don't know anymore.
I
And
thought
that was
for a
from their
moment we-
1988 album of the same How I Laugh Tomorrow When I Can't Even Smile Today. And what's your track?
So I picked another Cannibal Corpse song. I know I tried to pick different bands, but I just thought this one fit. Decency Defiled. And I think that fits this scene because they were decent people just going on a trip. And they got defiled. And Ash is standing at the end and he's not sure what to do with himself at this point. But I always wondered when I first saw the movie what happened to him. Because, of course, there was no Evil Dead 2 yet. And I always wondered what happened to him. What happened? Did he die? How did he get out?
Yeah, because I couldn't remember how Evil Dead 2 started. I wasn't sure if he was still at the cabin. And so that's how it started, was because he was there at the end. Or if he went home and worked at the Quickie Mart or whatever, which he does TV series. And I guess, I don't know. I think he used to work. Maybe he worked there for this movie. They probably didn't talk about that. Yep. But he worked at whatever. But anyway, yeah. So it was weird because you didn't know what really happened, and you didn't know. Because if they never made any more movies, then it would be a fitting end. You'd think, oh, he died. The thing killed him. That's how it would be ended. Everybody died. But then he came back.
And I think Ash was he was feeling a little comfort at the end a little bit because the sun was rising. He was feeling relieved. And then all of a sudden, the evil force just comes back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now I have a few notes here. Maybe you want to do your notes first, but I just have a couple little things. I mean, you can say anything else that you might know that I don't mention. You said about the driving scene was in Michigan, but I guess the cabin was actually in Tennessee, right? Morristown, Tennessee. And it was a real cabin, but I believe it's not there anymore or something happened to it after.
It burned down a few years after the movie was made.
Yeah, because I don't think it was the same cabin in the second one, I believe, anyway. But they, of course, made it look like the same cabin. And the film was originally going to be called Book of the Dead. And I didn't write this down, but they didn't think it would be a good title or something. I don't remember why, but. And yeah, this movie made Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi, like not famous, but Bruce Campbell was in all the rest of the movies, and he's done a few other horror movies, and he's the one where he's playing Elvis in an old age home, and I've seen Bubba Hotep, and he was in the Xena TV show, and then Xena, of course, was in Bruce at the Ash vs. Evil Dead TV show. Xena came part on that. So yeah. And so do you have anything else about the movie there for us?
So in scene 8, when Linda attacks, it's actually the looking back and forth when she's taunting him, pretending she's dead. Bruce Campbell actually called that die games. Said that's called die game.
Oh,
And
okay.
the original title of the movie was called Book of the Dead, but I don't remember who it was before the premiere. Some Hollywood actor or director told the cast and Sam Raimi, "You can't call it. That's a boring title, and nobody's gonna want to watch a movie about a book." So that's why they changed it to The Evil Dead. And then the swamp shot in the opening scene was filmed in Brighton, Michigan, like I mentioned earlier. And all the actors were from Michigan. And a couple of them went to high school together as well.
Yeah, I think or not Ash, sorry, Bruce and Raimi, they went to school together, didn't they? I think because that's
They're all, let me see, I have some note here about, it doesn't matter anyway. I think it was the one who played Cheryl and Ash went to high school together.
and
Yeah,
I
and
know I've seen documentaries on Evil Dead, and the three girls appeared at horror cons or whatever, or things like that. I believe all three of them showed up at those things, but I've seen a few documentaries on that and stuff.
The cabin was in Tennessee, and they filmed from November to January,
Mhm.
thinking we're not going to film in Michigan because it's cold in the wintertime.
Yes.
But they actually were on record in Tennessee, and because it filmed it in 79, and coldest winter on record in Tennessee was that year. So they were freezing cold the whole time that they were there. And I can't imagine Cheryl being attacked by vines in a robe, and it was only about 40 degrees outside during the time. And like I said earlier, the Caro syrup that they were using for fake blood was freezing on them and so sticky. And they said that the floors, they had to take the ash from the fireplace, put it on all over the floor after filming for the day, just so their feet wouldn't stick to the floor because of all the fake blood that they used. And the cellar in Tennessee had to be built into the cabin because in the South they don't have cellars. And it was only a 4-foot drop into that cellar. A lot of the scenes in the cellar were filmed in Michigan at a farmhouse. That was an interesting fact.
And I think, where did I read that? The franchise, All the Evil Dead. No, did I change my page? But it's made over, sorry, now I lost it. Where did okay. Now I lost
We'll have another fact while you're looking for that.
Yes, do that. I don't know.
So when they were filming, they always had somebody around to protect the camera equipment and expensive things that they had. But they had some tools. And they decided to take a break. They all left for the day. And then when they came back, the tool in the cabin had been stolen. But nothing else, not the expensive camera equipment, not the sounds, nothing, no props except for the tools. And Bruce said he had seen a couple of quote unquote yuppies at the top of the hill before they left, and they went in and just stole the tools. And I'm wondering, okay, this is Tennessee. I guess I could understand. But I'm wondering, why wouldn't you steal the camera equipment and everything else? But just tools.
I guess they probably could use the tools more than they could the camera equipment, I suppose, back then, especially.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Yeah, the three movies, so The Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, they have grossed a collective $300 million worldwide.
And they had no budget.
Yeah, I think the budget was only 300,000 or something on the first movie.
Yes, and they were only supposed to film for 6 weeks, and then they went to 12 weeks. And at the 6-week mark of filming, they had no more money to do it. It's interesting that they kept going.
And wait, does it say? And I see by Wikipedia, if this is correct, that in 2026 there's another Evil Dead movie coming out called Evil Dead Burn.
Oh, that's
I don't know.
interesting.
Let's see. The film's plot is currently under wraps. Sam Raimi and Robert Tappert will serve as producers. I don't know if I don't think Bruce is in it at all. Oh wait, yeah, but it's still a ways away. I just noticed that's there. I think I did hear about that actually before too. But I know we mentioned we liked the first three movies. Then they did a remake of Evil Dead without. They were producers. Sam and Bruce were in that one, but I didn't like that one very much. Did you like the remake one?
I, of course, did not.
And then in 2023, Evil Dead Rise came out, the one I mentioned earlier. I forgot the name, but I did like that one. It was different. They had records instead, and they were in an apartment building. But I don't know. I liked the performances in that, and I thought it was pretty good myself. But it's not really. They could have called it something else. They didn't call it Evil Dead, but of course they did call it Evil Dead. They just say, "Oh, you stole that idea from Evil Dead," so that's probably why it's still called that. Because I think Ash did, or just keep calling him Ash, but I think Bruce Campbell had something to do with the movie, but he wasn't in it or anything like that. But I don't see any of the credits here about that. But anyway, okay. So is that it? Do you have anything else there?
One more fun fact. Tom Sullivan built the dagger and created the drawings in the book. And I did not know that until I researched it.
Cool.
Basic.
Yeah, this is one of like I said, Evil Dead 2 is my favorite of the Evil Dead movies, and it's probably my favorite horror movie of all time. But not because it's scary, but because it's funny too, and I just love that stuff. And I watch anything Bruce Campbell's in, really.
Oh, one more thing.
Yes.
When Linda is dragged by the ankles, this is important to note. She sustains an actual injury. And the robe that has blood on it is her actual blood in the movie.
Yeah, they're from, or at least Bruce Campbell's from Royal Oak, Michigan. I was trying to find, he's been in a
We're all from Michigan, I think.
Yeah.
Except for Sam Raimi. I don't know. Sam Raimi, he's from Michigan.
I think they went to school together and were friends. But yeah, Bruce Campbell's been in a lot of movies. There was some other, I don't think they listed here. There was some other, My Name is Bruce. Have you ever seen that movie? Does that ring a bell to you?
It does.
Yeah, it was like a horror movie, more or less an Evil Dead kind of horror, like funny horror movie, but everybody thought, it's Ash is here to save us, but he was just Bruce Campbell, an actor. And he didn't want to help them and stuff, fend off these demons or whatever that were attacking them. But it's been a while since I've seen that one, but that was a good one. And I love the TV series Ash vs. Evil Dead. It was great. It had lots of cool $6 Million Man was played Ash's father in the movie. He's now passed away, but Lee Majors, of course, from the Fall Guy days in the 80s.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a great series and everything. So anyway, this is our first episode. So we hope everybody liked it. I'm glad Loni joined me to do this podcast. And we're going to shoot for, like we said, every 2 weeks. So if you're listening, please subscribe to us. Comment if you can. Like I said, you can message us on Instagram. Maybe you want to tell us what your songs are for the 10 tracks that you would pick for a soundtrack to the movie that we do. And in 2 weeks, we're going to do the movie Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So make sure, if you haven't watched that in a few years, maybe watch it again, refresh your memory, and follow along and pick your songs for the movie. That's what we'll be doing. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, Loni.
Thank you, Blake. It was fun.
And we will see everybody in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye.
You were listening to Someone's in My Fruit Cellar Podcast. Subscribe and rate our podcast wherever you listen to our podcast. Podcast edited by Blake. Visit our socials. Till next time.